Okay, I will call this meeting to order. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. Commissioners, is there a motion to adopt the final agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I will.
Second.
Either
We
one.
got a motion made by Commissioner Iverson and second by Commissioner Rocius. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Our next order of business is to adopt the minutes for our September 19th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Did you say from September 19th? Yeah. Okay.
From our September 19th.
I will move that we adopt the minutes.
I get a second?
Second.
I got a motion by Commissioner Murray and second by Commissioner Iverson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. We're now moving on to our discussion items. Our first discussion item is discussion 3.1, discuss future meeting dates. I will turn it over to City Planner Brian McCain for a brief summary before the Planning Commission discussion.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Yeah, this should be just a really simple discussion item. We're looking at our calendar for the rest of the year, and we have a couple possibly conflicting dates for some of you. I was hoping to have a few more commissioners here to get some more input tonight. But so I guess we'll just start off with the yearly orientation that we like to do. Based on the doodle poll responses that I've received, either of those meetings in November seemed to work for those who responded. Just curious if you all would be able to attend either of those days, either the 7th, which could potentially become the 8th, or the 21st. Does anyone have any conflicts in mind, or are you all able to make that date?
Works for me.
I can
Either
make it,
date's fine.
but I prefer the 7th if it's possible, or 8th.
Okay, okay. We can certainly do that. Okay, and then speaking of the 7th, that is Election Day. We have it on our calendar for the 8th, so just let everyone is aware. Mark that in your calendars that Tuesday the 7th, we will not have a meeting. Wednesday the 8th, we will. Then moving on to the week of Thanksgiving, that Tuesday prior, November 21st, we have a planned meeting. We do have one item already tentatively scheduled for that date. So if there's any interest in holding that date or moving it, now's the time.
I have no issues with that date.
Okay. Then lastly, Tuesday, December 19th, the week before Christmas. Same. Same. Okay.
Be fine.
Okay, great.
I do have some conflicts in all of December and first part of January, but I'll email you with that information,
Okay,
just so that you'll have it on record.
sounds great. Thank you, Commissioner Iverson. Otherwise, that was all for this item then.
All right, thank you. Since there's no formal motion required, we'll move on to the next item of the agenda. Our second item for discussion and action tonight is item 3.2, consider preliminary plat annexation rezoning for Hunters Brook Creekside. This item does include a public hearing. I will now turn it over to City Planner Brian McCain for staff presentation, and then we'll open the public hearing for those in the chambers this evening that wish to speak.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Yes, as you mentioned, we have a submittal from Tradition Homes for Hunters Brook Creekside. As you know, the preliminary plat is the middle part of the major subdivision process where all of the major entitlements are granted, like PUDs, CUPs, or variances. The request in front of you tonight does not have any of those sorts of applications, though. They will be looking for preliminary plat, annexation, and rezoning approvals. So just an overview of the location area. It is 4 existing parcels west of the Hunters Brook development and Victoria Drive, Highway 11. There is the Schmieg Farm to the north and the Marsh Lake Gun Club also to the north as well. In total, the project area is about 59 acres in size. You can see the breakdown there. It does include wetlands, wooded acres, upland open space, and developable open space. Some background for you. I'm sure I've told you all before that this application was coming. The Hunters Brook development previously received preliminary plat approval for 219 lots. 149 of those lots have received final plat approvals. Now those remaining 80 lots, or 70 lots, sorry, are actually going to be part of this Hunters Brook Creek side. This requires them to go back through the preliminary plat because of the addition of the 12 new executive lot parcels on the west and south ends of the project area. So those 70 lots that are being taken from the Hunters Brook development, those are still the blend of the heritage and tradition style homes, and they will utilize the PUD approvals from Hunters Brook that are still in place. This doesn't require any sort of new PUD approvals. So here you can see the Hunters Brook fully approved areas, the first edition in blue and the second edition in the northeast corner in red, and the Hunters Brook Creek side. This is the new preliminary plat that we're reviewing tonight in the green. So their proposed uses, 82 single-family homes, and as I mentioned, the approvals that we're looking for are preliminary plat, annexation, and rezoning. Moving on to the preliminary plat, you can see the 70 parcels from the Hunters Brook development that are here on the north end of the site, and then the 12 executive lots on the west in the green here. The green area is the land that will need to be annexed, and then the orange areas are already within the city boundaries. So with their application, they provided a phasing plan just to give you a general idea. The first phase will be 20 units in the green here. The second phase will finish out the Hunters Brook area with the remaining 50 units, and then the phase 3 will be the 12 executive lots. I do want to note, given the unique situation of this application, Hunters Brook Creekside First Edition in the green here was submitted at the same time as the preliminary plat. Both of these will be going to the City Council on Monday for review and approval. So 2040 Comprehensive Plan and the Met Council's guidance on this. It's guided for low density and open space. You can see in the yellow and light green. The project borders are within the future land use designations. So as they have everything laid out, the executive lots line up with the layouts of the areas in yellow. So this doesn't require any sort of comprehensive plan amendment. And then this was the guidance from the Met Council when we actually met with them months ago and described the unique situation that the executive lots that they were trying to do was falling below the density, and the Met Council actually gave us to give along to the applicant that this was the only way to approve those 12 lots. So with that being said, the overall project density came from 1.8, I believe, for the 12 lots on their own. With including these parcels, it's now bumped up to 2.28, which falls within our 2.25 to 6 range. As I mentioned, parcel 4 here requires annexation approval. It currently lies within Laketown Township. It's about 12.04 acres in size. The annexation request was reviewed and approved by the township, I believe, just about 2 weeks ago. And then the city council will have to approve it before we can send it over to the office for administrative hearings. With the annexation, any parcel that is annexed into the city automatically has an agricultural zoning district. So with that, they are requesting a rezoning, not to a PUD, but to the R1 low density single family standard, because the 12 executive lots meet all of the minimum bulk regulations, which you see in the table at the bottom of the screen, which was taken directly from city code. Just want to make sure I hit all my points here, sorry. And then the 70 lots to the north, as I mentioned before, they aren't requiring any PUD zoning, the tradition and heritage style will use what was approved for the Hunters Brook development. Moving on to site plan and architectural review. Look at pedestrian connections. So within the Hunters Brook area, they are proposing 6-foot sidewalk connections throughout the entire development. This is all the same. Nothing's really been changed here from what was previously approved. I will note, though, that there aren't any pedestrian connections proposed for the private drives for the 12 executive lots. For the private drives, they're proposing 4 of them, 3 on the south end of the site, which would extend from Creekside Lane, and then 1 on the west side of the site, which would extend from Rolling Hills Parkway. It'd be owned and maintained by the Homeowners Association, and the layout has been reviewed and accepted by our fire chief. Parkland dedication, they also provided parks and trails within the Hunters Brook development. And with the Hunters Brook second edition, they provided the remaining cash in lieu required. So the 70 lots have already been charged for that amount. So any future parkland dedication would only, come in that phase 3 for the 12 executive lots. So whenever they apply for final plat for those, that's when we'll apply the parkland dedication. Moving on to the landscaping for the tradition and the heritage lots, you can see the layout on the screen on the right. That is also unchanged from what was previously approved. Throughout that area, they're proposing 243 trees, including boulevard plantings every 35 feet and 3 trees per residential lot as required by code. Tree preservation, also the same. You can see that they're not proposing to remove a large amount of trees on the project area. Because they are heavily wooded parcels, they're going to have to remove a few, but overall, they're saving 82.44% of the trees on site, which does not require any replacement or mitigation. Then the wetland buffer and upland preservation, they're proposing a 30-foot average wetland buffer width for the executive lots, which you can see in the dark green on the screen. They're also proposing 174,000 square feet of upland preservation in the executive lots. That's the shaded lighter green that you'll see. And then the 41,000 square feet of upland preservation, which is also unchanged from what was approved with the Hunters Brook development. To give you an idea of what the heritage lots would look like and the tradition lots. Some of these are already constructed out there, so if you've been in the area, I'm sure you've seen similar designs. But these are what the new executive lots would look like. Just to give you an idea of the architecture and the general size of those compared to the larger lots that they're proposing. So the city engineer has also reviewed and provided comments. Kara is not able to attend tonight, so I'm just giving you a brief overview of what I can. I'm not an engineer, but I will assure you that she has reviewed the grading and utilities with this proposal, and then the stormwater is subject to approval from the Carver County Watershed Management Organization. So as always, we have an internal team that reviews all of these projects, including the fire chief, our public works department, and the building department. And for this project specifically, it's not adjacent to state highways, so we didn't have to include MnDOT. It's not within the shoreland overlay, so we didn't have to notify the DNR. The only one who really has to be notified is the Carver County Watershed Management Organization. So tonight, a public hearing is required for this, as you mentioned, Chair. It was published in the Chanhassen Villager on September 21st, and we also sent out letters to adjacent property owners on September 22nd. Then, once again, the approvals we're looking for recommendations for tonight are the preliminary plat, the annexation, and the rezoning. Here are the conditions on the screen. They were included in the packet, so these should be familiar to all of you. Including approval of the annexation and the zoning to R1 low density for the executive lots. Those are the 2 non-standard conditions that we have in this list. So tonight, Staff recommendation is that you hold a public hearing on the request, and then a sample motion is on the screen for you. With that, staff can stand for questions, and the developer is in the audience tonight to answer any questions you may have as well.
All right, thank you. I will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the chambers this evening who wishes to comment on this item? Hearing no comments, may I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I so move.
Can I get a second?
Second?
A motion made by Commissioner Murray and seconded by Commissioner Iverson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries and the public hearing is closed. I will now open the floor for the Planning Commission to discuss. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff or the developer tonight?
Well, I think for the developer, the only, probably one of the major things that has changed since we originally went through this, certainly is the mortgage rates. And is that an impact for the development? Do you see that as either a short-term or a long-term issue?
Good evening, Commissioners. Pat Rossi with Tradition Development. We are seeing somewhat of an impact with those higher interest rates. Fortunately, working with our in-house home builder and mortgage company, we've been able to buy down rates for a lot of our buyers, and I think as a result of that, sales have been surprisingly good in all of our developments, and most notably here in Victoria. So it's a little bit slower, but it's still very good. And as Brian mentioned, we're rushing to get the first 20 lots in, because without them, we'll run out of buildable lots over the winter. So short answer, yes, an impact, but still pretty good out there for us,
Workable?
for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would have for city staff certainly is the finger streets in the executive area. And obviously that's been cleared by the fire department at the same time. That's a, as long as there's approval, I guess there isn't too much comment other than it certainly has potential problems written all over it. But with an HOA managing it, that's part of the answer, so.
And I assume Public Works is okay with all that snow removal or whatever.
Chair Kuhn, that's correct.
Well, the HOA would do the snow removal?
Yes, I'm sure that's why he's very happy with this layout.
Any other discussions or? Hearing no more discussions, I'll ask for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend City Council approve the preliminary plat annexation and rezoning request by Tradition Development for the Huntersbrook Creekside development with the conditions and findings as proposed by staff.
Second the motion.
I got a motion made by Commissioner Iverson and seconded by Commissioner Rosales. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Move on to our final item for discussion tonight. It's item 3.3, variance for structures setback requirements from the tributary at 6642 Astor Trail. This item does include a public hearing. I will now turn it over to Associate Planner Will Brewster,
Wager.
Brueger,
Wager.
Brueger, for a staff presentation. And then I will open a public hearing for those in the chambers this evening that wish to speak on this request.
Perfect. Well, as the chair said, we are here tonight for a variance request for a OHWL setback for a tributary for 6642 Astor Trail. The applicant for this variant is Lisi Bros, and they are here on behalf of the current property owner, Lewis Prescott. This property is zoned R1 low-density residential and is within the Shoreland Overlay District. You would also notice that it is abutting Lake Victoria as well, so it'll be right there with a riparian lot on a developed lake. Their reasoning behind this is they wish to demolish the existing home on the parcel and install a new one in its approximate location. Lewis Prescott is selling the property, and the new buyers would like to put in a new home on the parcel. Though that will leave a problem. This property, again, has a tributary going along inside of the parcel, and that will actually come into effect with Victoria's zoning code section 22.6-D. It shows here that Lake Victoria will be seen as a recreational developed lake and will have a setback. The structure does have sewer connected to it, so it will be a setback of 100 feet. So they'll have to be 100 feet back from the ordinary high water level with Lake Victoria, but they will also need to be 100 feet back from the tributary as well, running along the property. The current existing home is around 21 feet away from that tributary. It runs right along with it. The property was built in 1959, so that was before these rules and regulations were in place. The new current Lisa Bros would like to install a new prop home in that location, but due to the close proximity to the tributary, that will make this unable, and they will be in fact not within code. So they're here tonight to see a variance to allow them to install a home close to that tributary. So they're actually going to be hoping for a dimensional variance from zoning code section 22-6D for a 31.3 setback from the ordinary high water level from that tributary. On the screen there, you can actually see through my cursor that that tributary will actually run northern right up along that property, going right through it there. They are going to be 31.3 away from the closest point of the proposed home. The existing structure was 22 feet away from it. So right now, the existing structure is closer to one than what they're proposing. The property owners and the applicant are basing their variance on that the existing home was built in 1959 before the rules and regulations. Any change to it, if they wanted to remove it, it's going to be a very older home, so they're seeing that as a difficulty. And that also there will be a buffer, southern buffer to the southern portion of the property. That'll also have a 25-foot buffer as well. So they're really limited on the area they're allowed to build this home on this parcel. If they are not able to get this variance application today, they're going to be very limited on spaces on the property to even build a home, let alone the ones this size specifications that they're hoping for. So for the city of Victoria, there are criteria that will need to be in place for a variance application to be approved by recommendation through the Planning Commission and then granting from the City Council. The first following that they'll need to meet is the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by this code. It's a reasonable manner that they're hoping just to build a home, but again, since it's close to that tributary, it is not going to be permitted at this time to build a home on the lot. The plight of the homeowner is due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the landowner or previous landowner. Since this is a local tributary going through, the previous landowner didn't build it, and it is not the current landowner's fault for it being there. The variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The home they're proposing to put in place of this existing one will only be 150 square feet larger, and they're putting it roughly in the same location where the existing home sits. Staff feels like there's not going to be a change in the nature of the neighborhood, and it will not alter the characteristics of the neighborhood as well. Economic considerations alone do not constitute practical difficulty. Again, since variance is for the setback from the ordinary high water level from the tributary, economic hardship is not a factor here, and this is not what they're requesting the variance for. So the Planning Commission will not make a recommendation, and the City Council will not grant a variance unless they find the following of staff: facts, strict enforcement or interpretation will result in a practical difficulty or undue hardship inconsistent with this code. Again, if we do not allow this variance, it will be a hardship onto the developers and the proposed homeowners, since there will be they will not be able to put a new home on the parcel, or they'll have to find a new location, which may have to change their proposed plans and or shape of the home. There are exceptional, extraordinary circumstances or conditions applicable to the property, use, or facilities that do not apply to other properties in the same district. A lot of other districts in the R1 residential don't have tributaries going through them, and it is a very unique shaped property along Lake Victoria. Many other properties do not have this, so staff does find this to be a unique parcel. Granting a variance will not adversely affect the public health, welfare, and safety, and will not be detrimental or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood. We feel that if they install a home 31.3 feet away from the tributary, it will not be detrimental to the health of the locality or neighbors or any other. So we do not feel that will be any hardship. And finally, granting of the variance will not allow a use that is otherwise not permitted in the zoning district in question. It'll still be used for single-family residential. They are not changing the proposed use. Even if they do remove the existing home and install a new one, it will still be used for single-family residential. So the use will not change. Staff identified only one condition for this along. We have sent out notices 10 days prior to both the DNR, Department of Natural Resources, and to the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District as per code regulations for any variance being allowed. The Minnehaha Creek Watershed District did respond back, and their comments are on the staff report. They have then stated that they do not have any criteria for this variance, and as such, they will pretty much listen to the recommendation to consideration of the DNR. The DNR has also responded back to staff. Their comments are also within the staff report, and they stated that they just want to make sure that there will not be any more future encroachment into the tributary, and has such asked that the developers and staff establish a 30-foot drainage and utility easement around the tributary. That way, if someone in the future would like to remove the home again, add a new one, they will not be able to encroach further into the tributary, and it will be another added layer of protection. As such, a drainage utility easement will need to be approved by City Council, and on the October 23rd City Council meeting, depending on how you recommend, they will be adding a 30-foot drainage utility easement. That way, there will be just an added layer of protection for the tributary in the future. I have a sample motion before you and with the recommendation, and we also have the applicant tonight along with the proposed homeowners ready for answer any questions you may have as well. And with that, I would recommend having a public hearing on this, since we'll need this as a variance application, and staff and the applicant are ready for questions if needed.
What is the problem with having the property or the proposed building moved further back than the additional 9 feet into the property?
Are you saying 9 feet back from where the tributary is?
Right. I mean, that's what their consideration is now.
Yep.
Or proposal is now.
So along,
Further back,
I'll try, I didn't mean to repeat.
further back from the tributary and from the current proposal.
Because they still have the ordinary high water level of 100 feet from Lake Victoria itself. They'll still need to be able to meet that setback as well. If they push back further away from the tributary, they'll then be encroaching in the ordinary high water level setback of Lake Victoria. So again, they're looking to be able to put it in the same location. And as stated, there is a buffer, a wetland buffer as well, going through the southern portion That buffer is going to be 25 feet as well. The reason the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District didn't have any recommendations or considerations is because their proposed plan does not encroach into that. Moving back further, they'll end up going into that buffer, and then the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District will have, well, then they will have issues with the proposed plan.
Thank you.
And they have applied for a permit with the Minnehaha Creek Watershed as well. They're going through the process, and they have a conditional approval with them at the moment.
Thank you.
Are there any, can I ask?
Well, first of all, I want to make a correction. It's Lake Virginia, not Lake Victoria.
Yes.
Okay,
Nice, good
All right.
catch.
I just wanted to
I was sitting there
clarify.
thinking, I didn't know there was a Lake Victoria.
Thank you.
South Ponce.
That's all right,
I was like,
but just for the record, it's Lake Virginia that we're up against.
And then commissioners, before we move forward any further, just make sure we open the public hearing.
Okay. All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the chamber this evening who wishes to comment on this item? Was there any comments from anybody?
I received one email from a resident, just wanting more additional information of the variance. They were just looking for what it's pretty much entailing and where the new home or proposed home will sit on the property. This was an individual that was 350 feet away from the parcel in question. That was mailed out 10 days before the hearing as well. We also contacted the Chanhassen Villager as well, and we posted a public hearing on there as well, along with City Planner McCann's on the 21st. So we have had a public hearing go out through the Chanhassen Villager, and we have notified residents 350 feet. Other than that one initial piece of contact, I have not received any other comment.
Thank you. Hearing no additional public input, commissioners, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
A motion made by Commissioner Sikora, seconded by Commissioner Murray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Public hearing is closed. I will now open the floor for the Planning Commission to discuss. Commissioners, is there any comments for the builder or staff?
I just have a question. Can you bring the
Survey up.
the survey up again? So, do you know if there's, okay, I do see entry and exit on the side of the tributary there. Is that as much detail as we have on that? I'm just thinking of deck, sidewalk, other things that would roll through that 30 feet, and if it's a hard stop at anything on the ground at 30 feet, or if this is saying whatever else would go on top of the soil would be fine.
Are you saying 30 feet from the tributary?
Right, so I see,
Yep, we have a deck there.
right,
And decks will, in the city of Victoria, will adopt the same setback standards as the home. So it'll be the first point, the closest point of contact between the tributaries. So it'll be through almost a line here going along. Yeah, you're more than welcome to as well.
Yeah, Andy John with Lisi Brothers Home Remodeling. Can I have a copy of that easement that Will was discussing, if you'd like me to?
that's just the 30-foot from this same diagram.
Yeah, basically, this is the 30-foot easement, this is the center of the creek. And so that's that 30-foot easement that the DNR is requesting.
Got it.
And developers did include an easement exhibit with 30-foot drainage utility easement as well onto the staff report. So they did include a copy of that as well with the drainage utility easement shown.
Does this include the garage? The proposed house diagram also has the garage within it, or is
Correct.
Okay, I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure it wasn't another structure that was gonna be in a different footprint.
I made it a little bit
It's
clearer
good.
one.
Yeah.
So here's our existing garage.
Okay, so
Our
it's
new garage, I'm
new
sorry.
garage, so
This is the
the existing,
element
so
of it.
this is going away. That's what I thought, but I was,
Yeah.
the dash line was,
Yeah.
100%?
Everybody wants to see that, that's a little bit easier to see than that. The property's 5.32 acres, so the survey is pretty small.
can I ask staff a question?
Yeah.
So the 100-foot from a tributary
Yes.
seems a lot. Is that, have we had a lot of trouble with that? I mean, it might not be a lot if you don't have a shoreland area, but if you have a shoreland and a parcel and also a tributary, it could render quite a few parcels unusable that may already be used for homes. Is this something we see often?
This is something we have not seen, I believe, too often, but these will also still be, this is actually part of our shoreline overlay ordinance as well as these standards brought forward by the DNR.
So that's where it comes
Yeah,
from.
these are DNR standards for the
Makes
tributary.
sense.
And then additionally, a lot of our lakes that do have homes on them were built prior to any of our shoreland requirements. So if this were a development and they were proposing to build a bunch of houses on the lake shore and there was a tributary in there, this would be a much different situation. But this house has been there for a long time, similar to the other houses in the neighborhood. So that's why we're considering the variance tonight.
Thank you.
One more for staff. And is there the highlighted risk of being closer than 100 feet for the tributary, like the DNR or the code section, or what's behind it?
Good question.
You mean behind the tributary up here past the top of the?
No,
No,
behind the
100
code
foot, like,
section.
what is the intent with the 100 foot of the tribute behind the tribute?
Correct.
Like, what are they trying to protect?
What are we protecting? What are we?
Exactly, because I was like, I don't know.
If you don't mind me answering for you, Will, our shoreland overlay district, it comes pretty standard from the DNR. So we just have to follow the rules that they give us. I'm guessing it has to do with protection for erosion so that we don't erode our lakes further with any sort of construction within 100 feet of a tributary that would then go into our lakes. That's my assumption, but I'm not the DNR area hydrologist, unfortunately.
No. And as we contacted the DNR as well, they didn't have any other too many comments other than just making sure that we are seeing future protection to that tributary. So it is an area of interest for the DNR. I believe Brian hit it nicely on the head that any drainage we get there will be then connecting to other lakes through as well. So they just want to make sure they see the added protection in the future.
So without going into a dissertation on the origin of the zoning and the setbacks and everything else, and it truly is a partnership. I mean, it's the city of Victoria saying, preventatively, that's a dimension that we need. And that's a dimension that has gone through 15 different organizations. And certainly, Minnehaha Creek Watershed District at the same time. And so they're saying, and I believe that the Watershed District has the data on a high water mark for 100 years. And so, you know, I would, if I were building a new home, I would want that research, quite frankly, at the same time. And, but the zoning, you know, the zoning is, I mean, you know, I've dealt with it in South Minneapolis, around the lakes. And when the water, in a real rainy season, it comes from below and starts bubbling up. And what does that mean to the homeowner? Well, what does it mean to the city? The city is saying preventatively, here's the specifications that we should have in order to protect. And, you know, when government starts protecting, that's a whole nother deal. But at the same time, I would truly view it as a partnership. And I would want the, and I believe it is available, the 100-year high water level. And, you know, these last couple of years have been very dry, so we have not had a problem. And if the existing homeowner has not had a problem since 1959, that's a good indicator for sure, based on the depth of the foundation at the same time too. So it's there for a reason, and it isn't the city, the planning commission, the city council saying, here's what we want. It's the research that we've done that says, here's what we need, what we believe that we need, so.
I did want to point out, though, the developers did end up putting a 100-year watermark as well onto their survey with the drainage utility easement shown. They're about 25 feet away from the 100-year high watermark level there. So they did have that on the survey that was included in the staff report.
Okay, one more question I've got. So what benefit does the 30-foot easement and utility, the drainage and utility easement provide?
It provides added protection to the tributary. So right now, this variant is going to be for the proposed home for 31.3 feet. If, let's say, years down the road, new homeowners would like to come in and install another home on the parcel, or they'd like to tear down the proposed home tonight and they'd like to put in a new one, that drainage utility easement will still prevent any I guess, encroachment from future projects.
So it's a dotted line blocker.
Yep, that drainage utility easement will then prevent any structures. It'll also prevent sheds. It'll prevent any detached garage. It'll prevent any encroachment is there as well from a drainage utility easement.
Yeah, it would be a whole different story if this were a 14-home development. It'd be a very, very different. And quite frankly, I would be shocked that the planning commission, or that it would even get to the planning commission. I don't mind saying. So, but for an individual home, it's, you know, the math works out a lot differently, so.
Right, and so if you were to leave the existing house garage there, you were at 22 feet.
Yep.
Is what it was there before.
Yep.
So technically, we're getting another 8 feet away from the creek.
Yep.
I mean, and if they said, okay, fine, we'll just leave the garage there, do a remodel, build on, and leave the garage, it's grandfathered in, it would be at 22 feet.
Yep.
Is this a walkout? Is that what the dark lines, are those retaining walls, or they?
Yeah, Commissioner, yes, there's a few retaining walls, but it is a walkout on that northwest corner. And as Commissioner Iverson was mentioning, the lowest floor elevation is at 931.1. That's the 100-year number that you were talking about. So we're at 935. So we got to be about 4 feet. We need to be 3 feet. We're 4 feet above that line.
Okay.
Yep, to get our walkout.
My last question was, is there any grading work that's going to be done on the site to change the foundation height?
No, we worked with that on that whole creek side. There's like an existing patio on that side that would be on that northeast corner. There's minimal grading. You'll see there's a little deck that comes off of our new structure with a few steps down. That's going down to that existing grade to minimize any kind of drainage or grading in that area. Yep. Very minor. And the driveway's at the, almost the exact same elevation.
Bring it back to that sample motion.
Any more questions for staff or builder? Hearing no more discussions, I will ask for a motion.
I recommend approval of a request for a variance for an approximate 31.3 OHWL setback from a tributary requirement, section 22-6D, for the property located at 6642 Astor Trail, with the following condition: establish a 30-foot drainage and utility easement around the on-site tributary.
A second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Murray, second by Commissioner Sikora. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries.
You're like, I need it. Okay, well.
And the good news, you have a lot of the answers.
Moving on to the miscellaneous section of our agenda. Staff, are there any items from staff?
Thank you, Chair Kuhn. Just will note that we have a scheduled meeting on October 17th. We do have one item for that. It's a comprehensive plan amendment for the Hunters Brook development. So keep that in your calendars, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Commissioners?
There's nothing to stop here. Check if the device is on your home Wi-Fi network.
I was trying to turn it off.
That's not a commissioner.
It's feisty, isn't it?
And that's for a public record.
That's right.
Motion to adjourn.
So there's a motion, second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Maybe
Yeah, motion
Siri
made
will.
by Commissioner Sikora, second by Commissioner Murray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.